In today's video, I'm going to show you how I took my game's cityscape level from looking like this to this. So the first thing I did was choose colors for the level. I picked 3 colors of a pink and purple mix that I thought looked good together. I then used the gradient tool to create a blend of all the colors from the lightest to the darkest. This is how I will color the background layers, with the lightest color in the back and the darkest in the front. Once I had all my colors ready to go, I started recreating the basic block buildings that I had in my Unity demo. I ended up creating 7 layers altogether. The first was the ground level, where the player stands. This is the only level the player actually interacts with. Next there is 1 foreground level in front of the player, 2 midground levels behind the player, behind that are 2 background layers, and behind all of it is the sky layer, which is pretty much just a solid color beneath everything. From here I started adding detail to the buildings. Using a layer mask, I created ledges on the side, and then added a few cracks in the building to give it a little more character. Next I used my best friend, the gradient tool, to add some shadows and texture to the building. Using the shape tool and a glow effect, I made this cool looking window. I was so proud of this, I made a second building with 2 windows. I also made the cracks in the building in different spots to make the buildings a little more unique. So now that I was a window making pro, I went and created a third building with square windows. This gives me 3 buildings I can copy and paste to create a cool looking skyline for our player to move across. The foreground buildings were next. Here I used more simple shapes to create a variety of buildings and objects. This time, instead of using glowing windows to give detail, I used empty space to let the layer behind shine through and help define the detail of the buildings and the objects on top of them. For the midground layers, instead of making every building individually, I made a chunk of buildings at once and then reused it several times. For these layers we were back to windows, but this time with less glow and more shadows. This way the layer won't distract the player from the ground level they are navigating across. The next background layer was made with the combo of the previously used techniques, with shadows, simple shapes, and soft glowing windows to create a chunk of buildings that can be duplicated. The final background layer is made up of a building chunk of just shapes and shadows. The ideal here is to decrease the amount of detail on each layer the farther back it is from the player to give it a more natural feel. The last layer is the sky. All I did here was add a simple color fill with a white gradient from the bottom up and a very small dark gradient from the top down. Now that the buildings were done, it was time to add some atmosphere. For this I created a cloud-like shape, and then applied a little color, some fading, and a good amount of blur to give it a soft, foggy cloud appearance. I placed these clouds in between the layers of buildings to help make them stand out from each other. I really like how this adds to the mood and feel of the level. So that's it. That's how I got from these plain squares to this really cool, dark, moody cityscape. I'm pretty happy with how this all turned out. I'll probably do a little more refining, and then start importing this art into Unity and begin level design. That's it for this episode of Jerry's Devlog. Thanks to everyone who has watched my videos. I'm really enjoying sharing my game design learning adventure with everyone. I would greatly appreciate it if you could like this video and maybe leave a comment below. This type of stuff really helps me get my video in front of more viewers, and that would be pretty cool. Also, be sure to subscribe so you'll see when I post new videos. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.